What's up? It's the Monster Man here, and I'm back from my long hiatus, and of course, it's for Pride Month. I know this video probably won't do well, but I figure if I'm not doing it for myself, then why am I even doing it? So I want to talk about this topic, and today I want to talk about Alan Scott, the first Green Lantern, who's recently become one of DC's more prominent gay characters. I say recently because this side of Alan Scott has only been explored since 2021, and it happened in DC's Infinite Frontier comic where Alan Scott revealed this information to his children. If you're like me, you may have thought he had come out sooner, because honestly, when I look at his outfit, it doesn't scream straight to me. A little flamboyant, a little out there. So for me, this was kind of a big Mandela effect. Green Lanterns are no stranger to diversity. If you've been reading the comics, you've got the white one, the black one, the Mexican, the angry one, the one with anxiety, and the one with PTSD. I always thought that Alan Scott's differentiator was that he was the gay one, which I suppose is true now, but wasn't true back then. The character's been retconned into always being gay. But there was a gay Alan Scott I had heard of that was actually never from the mainline DC universe. And I think this is where my initial misunderstanding came from. The first variation of Alan Scott that was openly gay was actually from the Earth 2 comic book line from 2012. Not to be confused with Earth 2, the alternate universe where all Golden Age characters resided in the past, before they rebooted the DC universe a few times. This Earth 2 was a very interesting comic run with its own timeline that had a lot of potential, though eventually it ended up getting mostly forgotten to time and is rarely talked about, quite frankly. And I feel that's because it didn't keep to its very strong initial premise. Earth 2 had one of the strongest comic starts I have ever seen, and I'm not exaggerating. And frankly, I think in isolation, almost any comic fan would agree. It opens to the death of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman at the hands of Steppenwolf's forces as they save the planet from a parademon invasion, only for Supergirl to notice in their final moments before the portal to Apocalypse closes that an even bigger threat, implied to be Darkseid, is about to make its way through. It's a perfect setup to establish a darker universe where the clock is always ticking towards the coming apocalypse that is Darkseid, and a world without the strongest trinity. In many ways, I think this universe has a lot of similarities to the new Absolute universe in that darker tone and bigger threat from having a weaker cast of characters. And it's pretty clear that the characters of Superman and Wonder Woman are weaker than their mainline counterparts. If you've been reading, if you're wondering where I got that from, Wonder Woman already lost her arm like twice in volume 1, so she's not on the level of her mainline counterpart. The framework of Earth 2 begs the question of who can feel the shoes of the ultimate hero, and who can the world depend on most if Superman isn't there. And the man to fill his shoes was actually Alan Scott. In this Earth 2 universe, Alan Scott was positioned to be Superman's replacement and the last champion of the Earth. In this universe, Alan Scott received his powers similar to his original Earth 2 origin after a tragic train crash. Though in this case, Earth 2 Alan Scott's crash was made even more tragic as he had just proposed to his boyfriend moments before the crash took place. Unfortunately, Alan was the only survivor, as he was protected by a force known as the Green. The Green is different from the regular emotional spectrum, and it's also different from the Starheart of the main DC timeline. And it shouldn't be confused with the mystical plant force that is known as the Green in the mainline DC universe, although there are some similarities. This is a wholly new force specific to Earth 2. The Green in this universe comes directly from the Earth itself, and it has the power to bestow its avatars all the powers of the Earth, which does include plant manipulation, but also a multitude of other powers, such as the creation of constructs with a flaming green energy. He can manipulate plant life, but he can also physically grow in size and change his mass, and he even has the ability to heal other people's wounds, and even resurrect himself from the dead. With this multitude of new powers, it was actually believable that he could step into Superman's shoes and be the last line of defense for Earth. He formed the head of the new Trinity with the Flash, who embodied the godly powers of Wonder Woman, and Hawkgirl, who had the vast resources and detective skills of Batman in that universe. Earth 2 ran from 2012 to 2017, and while they eventually backtrack on having a new Trinity and eventually introduce replacements for Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, even though they already had proper stand-ins, Earth 2 was fairly successful for its time and created new fans for an openly gay version of Alan Scott. Which brings me to Infinite Frontier, where we get a mainline DC Alan Scott coming out. And to understand why, you have to understand that Infinite Frontier was a DC initiative that followed DC Death Metal that had the grand goal of creating a DC omniverse where everything, including all past works, are canon. Just to clarify, The Omniverse initiative is started with Infinite Frontier, and it has continued into Dawn of DC, which I believe started in 2023, and DC All In, and they maintain the philosophy of creating a cohesive universe where everything is canon. This led to many retcons for characters who didn't have major roles in the New 52 or DC Rebirth, including much of the Justice Society of America who didn't have prominent titles in those runs. Alan Scott was one of the characters who received many major retcons to fit into this mold of all events being canon. You could argue he's one of the poster childs for this event. In Infinite Frontier, Alan comes out as gay to his children, revealing he has been hiding the secret from them for a long time. His children take the news well and embrace their father and explore this new family dynamic with him. Of course, with him now being retconned to being gay all these years, there needed to be some explanation for why he kept this hidden, and we get that explanation in his 2023 solo series that re-examines the character's past. This series shows us Alan Scott's first love, Johnny Ladd, who he met in the 1930s when he served as an Army Corps engineer. Johnny Ladd maintains a similar look to Sam, the lover of Alan Scott from Earth 2, with jet black hair, though notably they are different races, with Sam being Asian in the Earth 2 timeline. In this telling of his new origin, Alan views what he believes is Johnny's death to a mysterious red force that his military ship had been experimenting with. We see some years later, after the incident, Alan was forced to go to a psych ward by his family as a form of conversion therapy for his sexuality. This ward is where Alan met Billy, a transgender woman who is not allowed to be herself. She gives Alan his lantern, which is now the origin of why he chose a lantern shape to store the Starheart's power. In this version of the origin, we see Alan wasn't a train engineer like the Golden Age version, but simply on the run to Colorado to find a safe place to be himself after he witnesses the lobotomy of Billy in the psych ward. He travels with a second lover he's met named Decker. Like his classic origin and the Earth 2 origin, the train crashes with only Alan left as a sole survivor, given life again by the emerald flame of the Starheart. So this maintains that he lost another love in the train crash, and you can see this is shaping up to be quite the tragic origin for this man. Time skips ahead, and we see how a gay man in the 40s and 50s have to live. They hang around truck stops and parking lots and meet up in secret. Even then, gay men turn up dead and are beaten by the police if caught. It's eventually revealed that Johnny Ladd survived his experience with the Red Flame and was taken by the Soviet Union and experimented on to become the Red Lantern. The Red Lantern was tasked with spying on Alan in an effort to either acquire his powers or remove him off the board. And in that process, the Red Lantern killed many of the men Alan interacted with, out of jealousy and a desire for revenge, since he felt abandoned. Alan understood how difficult Johnny's life was and did not judge him too harshly. Like Alan Scott would in the future, the Red Lantern had also taken up a wife to hide his true nature, and it could almost be implied that a combination of losing all of his past lovers and seeing how the Red Lantern managed to maintain a life, that is implied to be what gave Alan the idea to take up a wife of his own, as simply being from the time he was born and being openly gay was unfortunately difficult and tragic in many instances. Johnny and Alan did end up fighting the Soviets together before the Red Lantern gave up his powers and eventually died in front of the Green Lantern's own eyes. The Red Lantern's spirit still lives on as it is tied to the Red Flame, and he can even be seen as recently as the 2025 DC Pride comic as a ghost haunting their old meeting spot. And this actually ties into what happened to Sam in Earth 2. In Earth 2, Alan was never truly separated from his love Sam. Sam gets to embody the avatar of the White and live on for a time and do good in the world as kind of a disembodied ghost, similar to Johnny Ladd. It's even shown in the 2025 Pride comic that there is a reality where that version of Alan and Sam are living out their lives in eternal happiness, free from the burden of heroism. So if you're wondering why these decisions are made and why the Red Lantern keeps popping back up, it goes back to Earth 2 and trying to make all timeline events canon. This new origin for Alan is dark and tragic and filled with death. One of the most notorious tropes in media is the kill your gays trope, where LGBT characters aren't allowed happy endings and many of their partnerships end directly in death. On an initial read of both Earth 2 and this new Infinite Frontier version of the character, I thought that Alan Scott was falling into this trope, but I see that Alan Scott is a bit more complex than that. His lover isn't truly gone as long as that Red Flame exists to counterbalance his powers. And the current Alan Scott is blessed with eternal youth and is regularly used in comics to this day. He still has time to find his happy ending. The darkness of his past does inform the character. He's untrusting and has had to hide for his whole life, which is why his attitude can be kind of abrasive at times. And I feel like this origin is meant to show you why this man would take a wife and hide his true self, and be careful about who he gives that information to, because he's seen how his community has been treated and discarded by the law in the time that he grew up in. Now that he's in the modern day, this can change over time, and who knows what adventures Alan Scott has left and what love he'll find in the future. I like Alan Scott's Green Lantern, and I think he's a character that will continue to evolve and endure. He deserves the mantle of Green Lantern, and he's one of the few characters I am happy got retconned into being a gay character in the main timeline. And if you're interested in seeing more of the character, I recommend you read his 2023 solo series that expands on his origin even further. Or check out the first 2 or 3 volumes of Earth 2, which I think were the best, quite frankly. But yeah, thank you for watching, and happy Pride Month.